This is St. Pete X, affectionately known as SPX. SPX brings you St. Pete's brightest business people, civic leaders, and citizens who share their insight and expertise as well as their love of our great city. SPX is presented by the St. Petersburg Group. Head to stpete.co to check out more episodes, and by St. Pete's most effective marketing agency, Big C. Browse to bigc.co to see their work. Now enjoy the conversation. Well, thanks for joining us, Kyle.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. So why is Penny Hoarder in St. Pete? Why isn't it not in Austin or Seattle or?
Yeah. Well, it's here because St. Pete's my home. And so I started the Penny Hoarder first as a hobby. I was broke, dropped out of college and out of a job. And I started writing about what I was doing to pay off my $50,000 in student loan and credit card debt. And so it didn't start as a business. But it's turned out to be a really great place to have a business. We opened our doors 2 years ago. I say that's the time we sort of marked going from hobby to business. And what I love about St. Pete is it's such a creative city. And since we're a media company, we have to hire a lot of writers, a lot of graphic designers, editors. And I've just been so overwhelmed with the amount of talent that's in the city.
That's great. So that's one of the misnomers about St. Pete, that it's a much older city and that kind of talent isn't here. So you're saying you have been able to find young, vibrant, creative talent here.
It is. I think that might be a conception from what St. Pete may have been 10, 20 years ago. But since the time I've lived here, even I've been here 3 years full time, it's even transformed since then. So there's plenty of talented folks in the city.
In growing your business, moving from just blogging to actually having a high revenue, really successful business, that's a big growth that you've had to undertake. And how has St. Pete supported you in as you've undertaken that skyrocketing?
I had never started a business before, so there's all these things that I faced early on that I had no idea what to do. I needed to find a space. How do you hire your first employee? Do you need a lawyer? And if so, who should that be? And so at first I started relying just frankly a lot on Googling. And it wasn't much longer that I found the greenhouse. And I started getting introduced to people like Sean Kennedy, who introduced me to other entrepreneurs, other folks in town. And one of the things I was struck by was how incredibly helpful and open folks in St. Petersburg are with their network. Every meeting seemed to lead to 3 or 4 more. And that has been so powerful for me because it's allowed me to gain a little bit of confidence as an entrepreneur. I'm really good at focusing on my product and my customers, but the actual sort of day-to-day of running a business, I needed to learn. And I feel like the leadership here in St. Pete has been really helpful in that sense.
So you wouldn't say there's a spirit of competition here, more of a spirit of cooperation?
Absolutely. I mean, plenty of us have competing businesses, but many of us are still friends outside of work and still share clients and contacts. And I actually have several entrepreneur friends in town, and when we share job candidates too. When someone's not a good fit for us because we don't need them at that, we share it with each other. I just don't know that happens in other cities. It's pretty wonderful.
So what are some of the things you'd like to do in St. Pete? What are some of your favorites, on the weekends or at night, or what really?
Besides working at the office.
Besides working, yes. Besides having a huge, fast-growing startup. So in the 15 minutes you have a week to do something for yourself, what do you spend those 15 minutes on?
Can I nerd out with
yes, please.
A little bit?
Yeah.
I'm an escape room junkie.
So
that is my way of unwinding. I've been to almost every escape room in town, even in Tampa. Start with a scotch at Cask and Ale, and then head to an escape room is my idea of a good night.
So you're saying, as far as you're concerned, people may say that we're growing around the craft brew scene, but we could potentially also be growing around the escape room scene.
Absolutely.
That's pretty good. Yeah. I know there's one just up the road here, right near Vertical Ventures.
So I think there's 3 locations within like downtown St. Pete area, and then there's one down at St. Pete Beach. There's a couple like in Pinellas Park. So there's plenty of locations. And I don't know. I think millennials in particular have a different way of being entertained.
Yeah.
Because we're like the gadget generation. We're not just comfortable talking to somebody or sharing a beer.
Right.
We have to be doing something at the same time. And I put myself in that camp. I will identify as a millennial. So the beauty of an escape room is you're doing something and having fun at the same time.
So St. Pete's a good city to go sit across from someone at a craft brewery and text them.
Yeah, exactly.
Why you're saying text them.
Exactly.
That's cool. In the going out scene, I'm well past my nightlife prime. What's the vibe like here going out?
You and me both. If I'm not in bed by 9 o'clock, something is wrong.
Something's broken.
So I'm not sure I can speak to the late night scene, but I do love going to the breweries around town. Three Daughters is somewhere we hang out quite often.
Can you riff a little more on the business community in town? You said it sounds like you've got, even amongst your competitors and amongst complementary businesses or just business people in general, you've enjoyed being in that network?
So I have, yes. So one of the, we're a media company, but we need a lot of tech-like resources, we developers and such. And I think there's often a misconception, and I've been guilty of saying this myself, that there's no technology in St. Pete. And I've really come to learn in the last few months that that's not true. There's tons of startups in the area, many of them in the technology field. And there's huge companies nearby that employ hundreds of developers and analysts and all that kind of thing. Everything from HSN to Nielsen to Publix. So it's really opened my eyes that I think I had a conception that a tech company meant like Facebook or Google. Right. And no, we don't have that, but we do have plenty of other resources. So that's been eye-opening for me. On the recruiting front, I mentioned that creative folks are easy to come by. We've also been really successful in relocating people. So we relocated out of our 70 folks, 25 of them we relocated, and more than a dozen of them came to us from New York City. So we've been successful transporting really big city folks to our small town. And I think it's because, and people always say this, is that St. Pete has everything that a big city has, all the amenities of it, but still has that small town charm and culture. And so when we bring folks down, there's always a little bit of uncertainty, like Florida. Didn't see that in my future. But as soon as they see the city and they see how quirky it is and they see the talent and the other companies here, we've been successful nearly every single time in convincing folks to move down.
And so once those folks have moved down, has the initial first impression come to be true for them, where they thought it was going to be this, and their feedback has been that?
Well, I'm happy to say none of them have left yet. None of them went home.
It's a good start.
So I think that we're doing something right there. Right. A lot of our folks live in the downtown area, so it's nice for them. They can just walk to work or ride their bike. Like a lot of companies, we struggle with parking near our office, so we've really tried to encourage people to live as close to the office as possible.
Walk and ride bikes.
Exactly.
Coast Bike Share seems to be doing well.
Yeah, it is.
See people out and about a lot.
Yeah, we're lucky we have one right outside our office, so you can just drop it off there.
Cool.
Yeah.
Tell me a little more about the trajectory of Penny Hoarder. Let's get inside the business versus talking about how it sits in St. Pete. You guys are hockey sticking right now, right? You're going up, and how has it been to coming again and just I know when I started my own business, the learning curve was steep, and I didn't have near the rush of opportunity that you have. How are you handling that, and what's it like on the inside of that the rocket ship?
Finding some gray hairs all of a sudden. No, it's been. I'm incredibly lucky. I think one thing I did well was to hire people that were way smarter than me that could teach me along the way. But it's been challenging too. One of the things that I wasn't prepared for was how I would have to change as a boss as the company got larger. So, when it was small, when the first 5 of us started at my kitchen table because we didn't have an office. And, when you're working in someone's home, it's a very different kind of relationship, right? You're meeting my dog, you're meeting my partner, like you're at my home. And when it's 5 people, everybody's involved in everything. Everyone knows everything. And then when we got to that 25, 30 mark, all of a sudden people were you had to start giving people the ability to make decisions on their own, because it's no longer possible for one person to make all the decisions. So that was a bit of an evolution. And now that it's 70 employees, and we think we'll be at 100 by the end of the year, it's changing again. All of a sudden, one thing I found is like my words carry more weight. Mm-hmm. I used to, if we'd be spitballing an idea, I might say, "Oh, that's a great idea." Now that means green light, start investing money, do that. So I've had to really adjust to how the role changes over the years, and it's been incredibly important that I keep learning too, because like I said, I've never done anything like this before. And we were just talking about how Warren Buffett reads all day. Yeah. That's been important to me. I'm not quite to 200 books a year, but I try to do one a week. And not only is it helping me learn a lot, but I also find it's my zen. It's which is when you're working so many hours and managing so many folks, it's important that you find something to disconnect from that. So reading has been my way of doing that. And then, the way we think about the business has changed too. When it first started, as I said, it was a hobby. There was no strategy. we were just trying to get the content out each day. And so we've really had to think strategically about who we want to be now and who we want to be 5 to 10 years from now. Digital media is a tough space. A lot of publishers are struggling, and our industry is sort of looking for a model that works. So we've had to really pick a couple of spots. And what we've decided is that we want to be a media company that has a larger mission. And our mission is to put more money in people's pockets. And I think that's important because personal finance for a lot of people is either stressful or boring. And most of the finance literature out there is not easily digestible. It's not something that you would want to read. So having a really strong mission has been important. And that mission has led us to a style of creating content that is fun and hopefully entertaining sometimes silly, but still informative. And we've monetized it in a very different way than most publishers. So rather than monetizing with display ads, we monetize through direct partnerships where we work to, like for example, General Mills is a partner. We work to bring folks to their brand in a very native way. Long term, we want to be able to take our content to other mediums. So we're continuing to build out our newsroom now, but we're also investing in Facebook Live, which has been a lot of fun. We have a studio in the office, and our goal is to go live every day with the personal finance news that people need to know to make a difference. So we hope that'll be our next 100 employees, our next big growth rate.
And that's brilliant, and it's important work too, because personal finance, putting it can have an impact on the country, because that matters to a lot of families, and managing their money well can make the difference between a hugely stressful family environment and a comfortable family environment. And so there's a real, I think there's a national benefit to getting that information in a palatable, digestible way in people's heads.
Yeah, more than 50% of Americans, it's reported to have less than $1,000 in their savings account, and that just means one accident, one emergency away from being at zero. So I think it's critical. And I was lucky. I grew up. Personal finance was part of our house. My parents were really open about our budget, and we knew exactly how much income was coming in. And my mom used to challenge us. For example, we, as kids, would take turns going out to the electric meter each day and seeing if we could beat the day before to lower the electric bill. So we were really a budget-friendly family. But when I got older and got out of the house, I quickly forgot all of that. I started racking up credit card debt and student loans. And I think it's important that personal finance isn't just something we need to teach it in school. We need to teach it as kids, but it changes throughout our life. The personal finance needs we have at 20 might be very different than we have at 40. Sure. And so one of our goals is ongoing personal finance education, so that no matter what age or what your situation is, hopefully there's something for you on the site that's helpful.
You mentioned reading as much as you could. So what are you reading? What sort of genres are you reading? Are you reading fiction, nonfiction, and any titles you want to throw out there?
Yeah, I like nonfiction, and I'm kind of in a biography phase right now. This is probably gives you a little insight into what I've been thinking about. But I've been reading a lot of biographies of people who have run large media companies.
Okay.
So I just picked up one on Ted Turner. I also I read a lot of like management books, which might not sound that exciting, but
I love them.
they are helpful.
I love them. I read them all.
One of my favorites is a little 50-pager, and I read it probably once a quarter. It's called From One to Many. It's a 15, 20-minute read, but it's a reminder to myself, and it takes you through the stages of different levels of manager. What it's like when you first start managing, what you should try to accomplish, what you should try to get to. And I use it as a way of checking in with myself, like, am I moving up in these phases?
Great. And Peter Thiel has one From 0 to 1, I think, which is also a really good read.
I haven't read Peter Thiel's, but I think I would enjoy it. I'm kind of fascinated because I've read stories about how they pay folks to drop out of college. Have you read this?
No.
So he's a believer that there's so much talent in young people particularly, and that there's some science that shows that we're most creative when we're in our late teens and early 20s. Yeah. So they've set up some sort of grant to encourage, like, people can apply to drop out of college and come work for him.
Well, yeah, there's definitely, I think, a truth to the changing face of the four-year university. It's people, the degrees just aren't nearly as necessary as they used to be, and because corporations aren't competing with other corporations to get degrees, it's corporations are competing with being an entrepreneur now, because it's so easy to just do your own thing and make just as good of money and do it sooner and not have to of course, if you hadn't done that, you wouldn't have probably started the Penny Hoarder, so it worked out for you. But
it worked out for me. I think college has an important place in society, and for some roles, it's probably absolutely necessary. Sure. But can I tell you a secret?
Yes.
It's the last thing we look at when someone comes into interview. Is what's on their education profile.
So what's the first thing you look at?
First thing we look for is, would they be a cultural fit? Do they share the same values as us? Second thing is, do they have a hunger for learning? Definitely don't want anybody on the staff that is comfortable doing the same thing for the rest of their life. And the third thing is, what is their current skill set? What have they already done? What can they contribute? And education is after that.
So yeah, I think that speaks to it. And I think it also speaks to the fact that there's just a lot of education available. It used to be the only place you could get that kind of knowledge was at the university, and now MIT is putting their things online for free. At the Khan Institute, you've got YouTube. You can literally watch a well-educated person lecture on anything you want at any time on YouTube. So
it's way more impressive for me to see a resume where over the last 10, 15 years of their career, they've continued to find ways of continuing their education, whether it be going to conferences or reading or taking small classes. That's way more impressive than seeing that you graduated, 4 years after graduating high school. That's sort of the track a lot of folks take. Sure. So the idea that you're invested in yourself and that you're eager to continue learning, it would definitely set you apart in an interview.
So maybe that's the new face of the resume. Here's a list of all the YouTube videos I've watched.
Yeah, there you go.
What do you think of that?
Yeah, tell me what Udemy classes you took this year.
yeah, that's cool.
I mean, it's something is broken, right? People graduating with 6 figures of education, student loan debt, and then I'm spending the next 20 years of their life trying to pay that off. I don't think that's sustainable. So we've got to figure out a new model for sure.
So you are you, but not here. So you are, for whatever reason, in the Midwest or the Pacific Northwest or New England, and considering moving your company somewhere else. And why is St. Pete the right choice to be that destination?
I'll give you the fun answer first. So last month we did a little team bonding, and we did it on the beach. Like, how many cities can you say that you can take a bottle of champagne with your staff to go celebrate down at the beach? So that's an easy answer right there. Yeah. But I would also say that one of the things that makes St. Pete special is there are very few cities like this. And I was fortunate enough working on campaigns to live in a lot of them, including Denver and Austin and Charlotte and all these sort of up and coming cities. And none of them are quite like St. Pete. And that's because there's a certain level of charm and community that in those larger metropolitan areas, I think you lose. We have all of the great things that those cities have. We have amazing food. I saw we were just rated as one of the most underrated food cities in America. We have amazing food. We have amazing places to live. We have amazing companies here. I mean, there are some of the best companies in the world are in the Tampa Bay area. So why not? Why not be here?
What do you think of this whole parking debate, Kyle?
Well, I think it's kind of silly, to be honest with you. I've lived here for several years. I haven't once not been able to park. We have a lot of garages downtown. I think it's different than when I used to come up here with my family 15 years ago, where you could easily find a spot on Beach Drive. That's probably never going to exist again. There's just too many of us, and there's too many folks visiting us, and that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. But there are a lot of garages, and that means it may be walking an extra few blocks, but it's there. I also think parking is something that will soon be of the past. We are moving to driverless cars, cars that can park themselves. And I think it would be a mistake to use our beautiful, valuable downtown real estate to build something that we may not need 10, 15 years from now. We'll be thinking about what we should be doing with those spaces soon, because we won't need them at all. So I think it's a debate worth ending.
I like it. That's very forward thinking. Yeah, that's cool. A term that is, it's a word, it's a color, it's purple. And a lot of folks, especially in the chamber, have put forth that we have a purple community and that our red and our blue, our left and our right, mix well here, better than in other cities. And that's because the love of the city and sort of the community is strong enough here that the push to be extremist in either one direction is lessened, and so you get a mixing of the blue and the red, at least in the middle and further out from the middle than in normal cities.
Right.
Have you found that? Do you feel like we have a purple city?
I've worked on a lot of local city council and a lot of mayoral races around the country. I've never seen a local government like this. Now, we all have our gripes, and that's a good thing.
Yep.
But the level of agreement about where the city should be going that's pretty unique. Most cities are really struggling with that. So for us to have any kind of growth plan or plan for the next 15 years, that's not something that all cities have been able to agree on. So I think that's pretty special. I do think we are a purple city. We have a lot of the quirkiness of a city like an Austin, but we have a city that's also extremely invested in making sure businesses succeed here. And I think that kind of environment allows for both sides to come together and find things they like about it.
And riffing off that, inclusivity, do you feel like there's an adequate amount of inclusivity and diversity in the city?
Well, I think we want it to be an inclusive city. One of the things that I've talked about, though, before is I don't think diversity can be something you just hope that happens. You have to actively go out and try to make it work. And so when I go to some of the local business roundtables or the chamber, or everybody talks about diversity, inclusivity. We all feel the same way, but I think we need to do more. We need to reach out to those communities and make sure that voices from across St. Pete are in the room when those big decisions are being made. I don't see too many people my age there, for example.
Yes, that's true. We definitely need more of those.
Yeah.
Definitely more of those. Cool. So millennials, since you are a millennial,
yes.
self.
So you keep reminding me, yes.
And you hire a lot of millennials.
Yeah.
Can you peek outside of the millennial bubble that you live in?
Yes, I'll try.
And tell us, especially since you've had the unique. It's often unique when you can go from not having a company to running a larger company, because you experience the growth to becoming an executive in a very visceral way because it's all new and it's all learned. It's almost academic, right?
Making me sweat.
Throwing the big E word out, executive. So what how do you feel the corporation of tomorrow differs from the corporation of yesterday?
Wow, that's a big question. Well, I'll tell you. I'll start with what I don't believe. I think there's been this big movement that the corporation of tomorrow is all about telecommuting, and that we'll all just work from home on our computers. And I don't think that's true, and I actually hope it's not true. We've really made it part of our culture that people need to come to the office, and we'll have to work from home one day a week, and we do have some remote employees. But being in person, being able to collaborate with somebody around a whiteboard, or being able to hear a little micro conversation next door and get involved in something, those are things you lose from telecommuting. So I hope the businesses of tomorrow are still in person and that technology doesn't sort of push us away from that really personal feeling that you need to have a strong culture.
And probably you might say the strongest companies will recognize that the strongest bonds happen when people are in each other's presence.
Yeah, I mean, I can spend the next 20 years of my life trying to come up with the best strategy possible for the Penny Hoarder, but it really comes down to the people we're hiring and the culture we're creating. If we're creating a culture where they're able to not only contribute, but to move on ideas without my say-so, and they enjoy coming to work every day, we're going to be way more successful than if I can put together some brilliant plan now.
And what about the folks that are working for more than one company at the same time, where they've sort of sliced up and are...
So that, I do think, is a growing part of our corporate culture. Millennials in particular, as you know, are putting together many jobs at once. It's something I know a lot about. That's when I first started the Penny Hoarder, I did all these side gigs on the nights and weekends. And that became the fodder for what I was going to write about during the day. So I probably had a dozen little side gigs at any given time, and I think there'll be more of that. St. Pete, we just introduced Uber Eats, and we have now delivery from Instacart, and so I think that sort of gig economy is in its infancy, and it's only going to continue to grow.
So accordingly, since you have a firm grasp of that, and that's a great answer, how does that trickle back into our education? And how do you see the traditional educations that we had changing, or how do they need to change to better serve this new paradigm?
So when I was a junior in high school, the only option, at least I felt that way, was to go to college. That was expected from my teachers, from my parents, from my friends. We were going to college, and I think we need to rethink that a little bit because it might not be the right path for everyone. And for to your point about the gig economy, it's not necessarily the right forum to learn for the jobs of tomorrow. Maybe for some, but I do think we need to be creative and encourage people to take different paths to get there. People often say, we can encourage trade schools or technical schools, and that's true. But even things like internships, and we were talking about Udemy classes and sort of self-learning, self-teaching, those things are equally as important. And I think that'll be a bigger part, or will have to be a bigger part of our education in the future.
Right. From a value standpoint, you can pack in, I know that just in the learning that I do now, I feel like I learn as much in 6 months as I might have done in 2 years with stretched out classes and projects and things like that. But it's really just a matter of demonstrating that you have that knowledge. Because
you want to learn too, right? I think sometimes when you're 18, 19, getting through
as much as you can tolerate
the day's classes is just a way to get to the fun part.
And
so
I would identify with that too. So I hear you. Yeah. So with the gig economy, obviously, one of the big benefits of coming to a full-time work are the benefits, the insurances, the retirements, and luckily they have the Penny Hoarder as a resource to take care of the retirement part of that, but not so much maybe the insurance part of that. How does having those multiple workplaces affect the daily life and the families that do that?
It's actually a huge problem because traditionally employers have been the way people get their health insurance, the 401k, even things like paid time off. Like, how would you get paid time off through driving for Uber? So it's something we have to start thinking about, and I think it's a place where actually government needs to be involved. We need more vehicles for folks to be able to save. And we need to continue visiting the health insurance discussion because a young person, paying $400 or $500 for health insurance is going to be very difficult in a gig economy landscape.
Seth Godin has an alternate MBA, and sort of the mantra is teaching you things you can't figure out with Google. And so it's thinking. And as far as you producing content, does that resonate with you at all? Being able to put things out there in such a way that it teaches people how to think in ways that are outside of Googleable, lanes?
Yeah, absolutely. So search traffic is part of our business, but a lot of what we write about is in story format. So we often say we're putting the personal and personal finance, and I think that's important because we're not just giving you a list of tips or hey, read this to learn about what a 401k is. We try to go find somebody who has successfully done it and let them tell their story. And not only is it easier to digest and hopefully more entertaining, but at the end of that, there's a little homework assignment that you can take away and put into your own life. So that's really been our format for success when it comes to content.
And have we seen the death of, and my fingers are crossed, the answer to this is a yes, the list? The 7 ways, this, that, and the other thing, or the 12 ways?
You're going to kick me out.
Is that still hot?
It's still a thing.
It's still a thing, okay.
Still a thing.
The list. Or, and then
the quiz,
whole...
Or the quizzes.
The quiz. So, I mean,
yeah.
Vogue had it right, and all the magazines, it does he really love you, or whatever. It's too ingrained in the,
exactly.
in the psyche.
Yeah. The Cosmo quiz.
The Cosmo, that's it.
It still goes on.
And then they had the 12 things that will change your life, and number 7 you can't miss. And so I have to see number 7.
The one part that I hope will get better though is the way those articles are delivered. I hate when they're delivered in a slideshow format, and I think the tide might be turning on that. This idea of just trying to rack up page views and ad views through creating the worst user experience as possible. I think that part might be finally starting to shift. And a big reason is because of ad blockers. When display ads rates started going down, publishers said, well, let's just make the ads more annoying. Let's just make them bigger, and then we'll get people to click on them, or let's make them click more things. And then ad blockers came along, and now it's some stats say up to 30% of people have ad blockers. And so, it sucks for publishers, but it is going to force us to get better and hopefully get rid of all of that annoying stuff.
And so because you don't use banner ads and display ads, you can speak freely about your true feelings about them, and I'd love to hear that.
So we did have display ads on the site for a very long time.
Right.
And I'll break some news here, but we just removed our last display ad last month.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It was a good feeling. So I do think that is a dying industry. And I not only because it's incredibly hard as a publisher to, when you're getting paid $1 or $2 per 1,000 page views, good content's incredibly expensive, and so that's a model that doesn't work. It also doesn't work for advertisers. It's not a good format for teaching us about new products. I was at a conference a couple of months ago, and there was a representative from Taco Bell, and she was saying, when I buy 5,000 points on cable TV, I know exactly how many beefy beef burritos I'm going to sell on Friday. She said, I can tell exactly.
I see that algorithm.
Yeah, but when I buy 50 million impressions on a banner campaign, it's a shot in the dark. We're just hoping, and that I think has to change. We have to be able to provide advertisers some clarity on ROI. And that's why we call our model a performance model, where we don't make advertisers pay us unless there's success with their campaigns. It's a lot more risk. We take a lot more chance up front, and sometimes it doesn't work. But when it does work, not only is it better for the user because they're not having a bunch of annoying ads in their face. But thankfully, the rates are much better too and more sustainable.
And this insight that you have on why this is a better way to be, are you in a place where you just say, this is what's right for my business, or do you feel strongly enough about it that you would advocate for it, that you would create your own content as CEO of a media company trying to urge for the greater good that the industry should go this way?
Yeah, I'm doing my darndest to convince people to give it up. So no, I don't think it's just for me. I think it's good for everybody. And honestly, it's good for me too if other publishers go this direction, because one of the challenges that we've had is to train advertisers on this model. And oftentimes it means them investing in some technology to help track what's happening, or it might mean hiring somebody to manage a performance program. So if more publishers do it, it's good for me too. So I'm on a mission for sure.
Cool. And along those lines, can you give a little more, explain a little more about how your model works exactly? I don't think we covered that.
Yeah, so I'll give you an example. So Lyft is a partner of ours, and we partner with Lyft to create both videos and written content that's in our voice, but also represents their brand. And because we're not just putting an ad up, but we're writing about a company, we've been very choosy about who we put on the site. In fact, we have twice a week what we call a deal panel. And our sales team has to bring to the editorial team any deals they're working on so that we can kick it around and make sure it's something that's actually a good deal for our reader, try it ourselves. And then as a team, we vote on whether it's something we want on the site. And that means 95% of the advertising deals don't go to fruition. But the 5% we invest in heavily, not in dollars, but in time. We get to know their business model. We get to know their culture, their values. We get to know what works for them on the marketing front. And then we're able to act almost like an agency to create content that converts. And in Lyft's case, helps sign up new drivers. And we don't get paid until those new drivers are signed up. So Lyft every time a driver signs up and gets their first paycheck, we get a check too.
Wow.
And we like it because everyone kind of benefits from it. Lyft is getting new drivers, our readers are making extra money, and we're making money to continue to grow.
That's great. So it's sort of a hybrid. There's elements of influencer
Yep.
marketing where you're the influencer.
Sure.
Elements of PR because you're obviously putting content out to the masses, and then elements of the financial benefit to the reader as well. So they're coming for not, I won't say like a deals site, but a smart buy site. It's sort of a variation on that. So
the thing as a publisher is, I don't want to lose any advertisers, but we would write about these companies anyway, right? This is the kind of stuff we want to write about. And we wouldn't promote it to this level or
Sure.
go through the amount of work we do. But that's really the metric for the model for us. Is this somebody we would want to tell our friends about? And if the answer is yes, then they're in a place on the site. And if it's no, find another outlet.
So on YouTube and in other places, there are clearly influencers that are out there, and there are people who have built names doing everything from just opening boxes up and showing you what's in it to reviewing restaurants and food. And so it seems inevitable, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you're going to have some people that are producing content for you that are going to get some traction for themselves. People are going to search out the names of the authors, and so do you have sort of an awareness around building your own homegrown celebrities in house, and unlock, you are selling your influence, and so you can unlock a lot more value by building brand power through these people in your organization. How do those conversations go?
Yeah, it's a really good question because this is a big debate in the industry right now. So well, first of all, we create all of our content in house, so we're not outsourcing any of that. But we have decided on a strategy to not keep our writers and our folks that go on video anonymous. We want them to build their own brands, and sure there are risks with that, but there are ones I'm comfortable taking because with personal finance, as I said before, you need to create. We need more than anything our readers to trust us. And we need them to know that we're real people and know what our fact-checking policy is and know how we decide on advertisers. And so if they can get to know our writers, or our hosts that are on Facebook Live. That's incredibly powerful from a trust angle. And I do think there is the ability to leverage that down the road. You think about, for example, there's this show called The Pioneer Woman, if you've ever heard of it. She has a cooking show on the Food Network, I believe. She started as a blogger and just taking photos of what she was making for dinner. And now she's gone on to have a TV show and I think cookbooks. If one of the folks on our team was able to have that path, that would be incredibly exciting.
And it certainly doesn't do anything but help the Penny Hoarders to have that as their launch pad. And it creates you as a launch pad. So, yes. And then obviously it'll circle back around as a destination too, because I think if history serves, your success will migrate over into Facebook Live, and that'll be a place where you'll have anchors, you'll have known people, and people will be migrating to you maybe.
We call ourselves a platform neutral site, meaning we don't really care if you come to thepennyhoarder.com. Right. I mean, we'd like you to, but we just want you to interact with our content in whatever format or platform you're most comfortable with. So if you get all your news from Instagram, which might be a thing, we just hope you'll interact with our news on Instagram. And so every platform we create really specific content for, and we're happy with our readers just staying in those particular platforms without coming back to us. So it makes sense to have a model where we're building influencers in our site, because if they're interacting with those influencers and their networks, that's still good for us.
And are you dividing your talent up by platform as well? So do you have is an Instagram person mostly shaping the content for Instagram? Obviously, different social medias have different voices and tones.
Yeah, they do. So it depends a little bit on the network. So if like an Instagram or Snapchat, it is a company branded channel. So you're not really getting to know an influencer on those channels. But with Live, we call it Live because we're hoping to launch on other platforms other than Facebook.
Right.
You do get to know the influencers. Christy Post, for example, who's one of our hosts, she came to us previously. She was at ABC News. She has a growing fan base that tunes in just for her broadcasts.
That's great.
And that's the kind of thing we want to encourage.
This is an idea. We've done some work with HSN, and one idea that I tossed out that I think was interesting. Obviously it's not an original idea because Netflix and Amazon are doing this, but it'd be interesting, a platform like HSN, for them to do a sitcom or some generalized content, and then work in the products into that. How far does the media vision extend for you beyond just talking heads reporting?
I can't share too much here yet, but I will say we're definitely thinking about it, definitely taking steps towards it. Since our model allows us to be neutral to the platform, we want to take our content to other mediums for sure. So we're actively planning that.
Cool, that's exciting.
Yeah,
we've done a little thing called a shout out. You're in the community a lot. You have a lot of people coming to you and presenting things to you. Who is someone? It can be a nonprofit, it can be a startup, it can be an artist, someone that, it doesn't have to be just one either, but someone who jumps out in your mind that what they're doing is really cool and they could benefit from having a few more eyeballs on them.
I don't know if they need more eyeballs, but the Tech Garage is such an incredible resource here in St. Pete. And Tanya Elmore and her team have done such an amazing job. There's a lot of cool startups in that space, and I understand they have a long waiting list, and they're building a new innovation center for it. So definitely a shout out to them. I'm going to give a shout out to, he doesn't necessarily own a business, but somebody who's been such incredible help to me. Ashby Green, who was CFO at Kobe, has absolutely been fantastic. I can't tell you the number of relationships he started for me that have not only helped me personally grow, but have put money in my pocket. So shout out to Ashby.
We're doing a thing called the Petersburg Group, which is it's sort of a civically minded consulting group, and Ashby's my main partner in crime on that.
Oh, nice.
So we're pretty close. We actually just got back from camping in South Carolina together last week.
Nice.
He's a big fossil geek like I am, so we were literally in the river for 2 days straight digging up for sharks' teeth.
Seriously? Wow, that's cool.
So it was cool. So yeah, I'm a fan of his as well.
Is this tent camping or?
It was tent camping for us. He brought a pop-up trailer, which I called a little bit of a cop-out. But this was the first time he'd used it, so it took us an hour to figure out. We had the tent up in 6 minutes on our site, and then I'm over there sweating, trying to get this, figure out which bar goes where to get this pop-up trailer. Yeah. And then we, on the way home, the bracket that holds the tire to the axle broke. So we're on the side of the road in Georgia, trying to, with the jack out of my car and the jack out of his car, trying to get this camper popped up so we can change the tire. And we ended up having to get a mobile welding unit out to weld or put a new bracket on.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's like, it was an amazing day.
Oh, it was like a day for all that trouble.
Yeah.
Hope you get some good campfire food.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we found some good teeth. It's fun. He's got a cabin down on the Peace River. And so we'll go down there and right outside the back of it is just sit in the river, and it's like peaceful and relaxing, and talk business and not talk business, and it's good.
Awesome.
So go on the fan as well. All right. Well, I appreciate it. It's been a good conversation, and
thank you.
We had a lot of great content. You've made it to the end of another great episode. For show notes, head to stpete.co to the show notes page, which includes links to all the resources mentioned in the show, as well as quotes and key insights from the show and information about the guest and the host. Thanks again to our sponsor, Big C. Head to Big C, that's BIGSEA.co to check out their work. And if you like what you heard, make sure to share this episode on social media and leave a comment. See you next time.